Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to talk about a challenge created by Mark over at Book Times with Elvis. This is the UEFA Euro 2020 Cup, held in 2021, and this is the last year's challenge that was held over due to COVID restrictions, but it is being held over in 2021. And every participant in this challenge has been randomly given a football team from Europe, drawn from a hat, and I have drawn Belgium. And Belgium will be playing a group of three other teams: Russia, Denmark, and Finland. So for this challenge, I am going to be reading a book written by an author from Belgium or a book set in Belgium. And the book I have selected is The Train by George Simenon, originally published in 1961 and translated into French by Robert Baldrick. Now, George Simenon is probably the most famous of Belgian authors. He is known for a mystery series about Margaret, I believe. But this book is not a mystery book. This is more of a historical novel. Again, this is set in 1940s France. The main character is Marcel. He's an ordinary Frenchman. He spent 4 years in a sanitarium when he was in his youth, probably, I'm guessing, for tuberculosis. And he is now married. His wife is 7.5 months pregnant, and he has a 4-year-old daughter. And this is how he describes his life. I want to make it clear right away that I was not an unhappy man, nor sad either. At the age of 32, I considered I had gone beyond all the plans I had made, all my dreams. So this is not an ambitious man. This is a man living out his life. In a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Albert Camus, Marceau in The Stranger. He had that sort of like nonchalant attitude towards life. But as I said, this novel is set in 1940, and everyone knows what happens to France in 1940. The Germans invaded. And so what happens after the Germans invade is that Marcel wants to get his wife and child out of immediate danger. So they go to the train station and with a lot of other refugees start boarding the train. But the train loads women and children first. And as to be expected, the train is full and a train pulls out of the station with just his wife and child on the train. He expects that he will meet up with them later. And that is the basic setup of the novel. Shortly afterwards, he meets a young woman of uncertain origin, and they sort of hook up as a couple, as he was sort of be expected. Now, the romantic liaison that they start up may be a little surprising to some people for a married man, but it's just very typical French attitudes. And so they form a couple going along the train, and the train, of course, gets shot at by the Germans, and they go to a refugee camp. Now, I'm not going to go into too much more details on the plot level. Now, one of the things about this book is I mostly enjoyed reading it. It moves along very well. It's only 144 pages, so it's not a huge investment. But one of the things Simenon did is he did what I'm calling is the Chekhov gun problem. Now, everyone should know that Chekhov famously said, if there is a gun on the shelf in the first act, it must go off before the end of the last act. And Simenon set up what would be standing in for the gun on the shelf early in this book. And this, well, it's not a gun, but his item that he chose does not go off. And it's just a very odd piece of description for the author to focus on so early in the book and not have any pay through at the end. But that's a minor quibble. Now, the thing is, the end of the book it's hard to say because I don't want to give it away, but the Marcel does something at the end of the book that I want other people to read and talk about, because it's the kind of thing that it should be conversed about in a book. Because I totally understand why the character did what he did, and I would, on the surface, totally disagree that he should have done something else. But then I start thinking, if I were in his place, would I have done the same thing? And of course, I can't tell you what that is without spoiling the book. So my hopes is that Belgium defeats Russia, Denmark, and Finland, and that some of the other participants in this challenge will have to read a book by a Belgian author. I hope they pick up this book. As I said, it's 144 pages. It's not a long read, and I think it could make for a very interesting conversation to discuss, was the action that Marcel did at the end of this book justified, or is it completely horrifying? And I don't know. I'm trying to get my wife to read this book, and maybe she can discuss it with me if no one here on BookTube picks this up. But that is my short little entry into this challenge. I hope other people start putting up their challenges, because I want to hear about their teams and their countries. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good evening. Goodbye.